Far away from where you are is a country very much like yours, the Union of South Africa. You may know about the gold mines and the diamonds, that South Africans are very much like Americans and live in times for food, sometimes for his own safety. But as time went by, South Africans began to realize that in their country they had something that was rare in this civilized world, rare enough to cultivate. They set aside certain areas for the protection of strange birds, exotic flowers, and wild animals. The Kruger National Park is the biggest of these protected areas. It is, in fact, the largest game reserve in the world, 8,000 square miles in extent, about the size of the state of New Jersey, almost as big as Belgium, larger than Wales. There are no zookeepers, no cages, no bars to fence them in. Human visitors have to observe certain rules when they enter the reserve, but for the animals, there are no rules. You are going into a different world. There is an uncanny, expectant hush in the air. Now and then, invisible birds will burst into song, and when they stop suddenly, the silence is closer than ever. The wildebeest, grotesque and ungainly, makes way for you to pass. A little steenbok watches silently from the bushes. The warthog peers at you, ugly and dangerous. His vicious tusks have ripped to death both man and beast. But he's easily frightened, and if you get too close, he'll turn and run. Look at that tail. This harmless-looking little animal, the silverback jackal, is a killer. The smaller antelopes are his prey. This is the waterbuck. The waterbuck is easily recognized by the white ring around his tail, which makes him look as though he had been kicked by an angry horse, or perhaps by a zebra, which numbers thousands strong in the reserve. The zebra is a sleek and well-fed animal with keen sense of smell and sight to keep him from danger, but with so little stamina that attacking lions usually find him an easy prey. The seldom seen Inyala ram, followed meekly by the doe, is one of the rarest of antelopes. There are more than 300 varieties of indigenous birds in the reserve. This one is the blue crake. The graceful impala are seen all through the reserve, sometimes in small groups, sometimes in herds of 100 or more. They live on grass and wild fruits. But the lions live on them. There is danger also in the calm water of the drinking hole from the crocodiles hiding in the mud. And so they prick up their ears at the slightest sound, the smallest movement in the grass. See how quickly they watch the birds fighting in the background. Hidden danger lies in wait for the zebra, too, from the crocodiles, from the lions crouching in the tall grass. They sniff the air suspiciously, scent danger, wheel around, and prepare for flight. Even the great white-headed vulture is in danger from the crocodile. This carrion bird feeds on the remains of carcasses left by killer animals. The bustard preys on the snakes, who prey on lesser birds, and is himself the food of wild dogs. Hippos are found in all the deeper waters, and all but the babies have no fear of attack from any other animal. But sometimes the bulls of the herd battle among themselves for leadership and inflict serious wounds on each other. The hippo in the foreground has a flesh wound on its side, and if you look closely, you will see a bird pecking in this wound, cleaning it out and keeping the hippo free from infection. The painted snipe is a henpecked bird. Contrary to the usual custom in nature, the female is the better looking of the couple. She lays the eggs and marches off to find a new mate, while the first one stays home to hatch the eggs. The most evil killer in Africa, the crocodile, crawls onto the riverbank and looks around for excitement. From the opposite bank, a massive-jawed brute slides slowly into the water, cooling himself off after basking in the sun. But the other has a grudge to settle. He streaks into the water and the fight is on. With tails lashing, huge jaws snapping, they battle furiously until the end can only be complete exhaustion or a slow death on the riverbank. This sinuous reptile, as much at home in the water as it is on land, is the poisonous puff adder. The hooded cobra, swaying as if to the unheard music of an Indian snake charmer, he is, like the puff adder, both repellently beautiful and deadly dangerous. The snake's worst enemies are the mongoose, the eagle, and the secretary bird. Stalking off pompously as if to a business appointment, the secretary bird will attack the snake, snatch it in his beak, and soar several hundred feet above the earth. Drop the snake and kill it. This prehistoric-looking animal often reaches a height of more than 18 feet, tall enough for him to chew the young and succulent shoots in the treetops. He that surpasses trees, the Zulus call him. It's commonly believed that the giraffe is a speechless animal, but the mothers have been heard to low softly, like anxious dairy cows, if the young ones wander off too far. Wild dogs hunt in the early morning, in the evenings, and on moonlit nights. More powerful than they look, they hunt in packs to bring down antelopes and even such large animals as the buffalo. The kudu, usually among the most peaceful of animals, uses its long spiral horns to protect itself against the small killers. A sable cow, browsing peacefully among the palms. Even the lion hesitates to attack these magnificently horned beasts. The famous stork, not quite as peaceful as his reputation would have it. One member of the stork family is known to the native Africans as the master of the feast because he boldly gatecrashes where the giant vultures feed. The martial eagle strikes fear into the hearts of leopard cubs, snakes, and small antelopes. But not all the animals are killers, least of all the cheerful kiwit, or the little lilac-breasted roller. For all its seeming cruelties, there is a sense of peace in this untamed world where strange birds sing, where antelopes watch you, timid but unafraid, and monkeys chatter excitedly among themselves. It's getting close to sunset, and the treetops are alive with sound. The visitors go back to camp and build their campfires. A leopard disappears into the bush. The hyena is surprised on the prowl. His jaws are as strong as a lion's. He can snap a buffalo's thigh bone in two. He can bite through an iron trap. His laugh, far from being humorous, is diabolical, frightening. His night's work over, he skulks off to his lair in hidden cave or crevice to sleep until the moon comes up. You never know what's waiting for you around the bend. Maybe he's been watching you for hours. You can travel through the park for days without seeing lions, but they've seen you. And then one day you'll turn a corner, and there they are, a whole pride of them, strolling on the road or stretched lazily at the roadside. Unless they're hungry, wounded, or protecting cubs, lions are indolent and good-natured. But there's no sense in tempting fate. The better part of valor is to stay in your car. The lion does not yet associate the smell of gasoline with anything good to eat. So as long as you stick to the rules, you're safe. They look benign and friendly, but they're not hungry. Yet. There are, of course, no keepers here to come around and toss meat to them at feeding time. The whole reserve is a potential dinner table for a hungry lion. And as on other levels of life, it's the female's duty to feed her male. But in the animal kingdom, duty is carried one step further, and it's the lioness that does the hunting. And now the thought begins to strike them that it must be nearly dinner time. At a nearby waterhole, a herd of impala are gathered. Some are drinking, some are watching. One, foolhardy, goes alone to drink. The others watch the lioness uneasily, ready to take flight, for they know that she can spring almost quicker than the eye can see. She has seen the lone impala at the river's edge, and so she silently trots after him. She leaps like lightning, but the tiny animal plunges desperately into the crocodile-infested river and swims to safety on the other side. She has failed. You'll have to do better than that. Well, there are plenty more where that came from. Bigger impala, kudus, fat zebras, tsessebe. Ears cocked, drinking, but watching. Birds and monkeys chatter noisily, excitedly, knowing that something is going to happen. Again she springs and again misses. Off they go, running for their lives. But the tragedy is inevitable. Next time, she won't miss. Tiny animals scurry into the underbrush. Even the birds stop their singing. He has seen the lioness, but too late. The climax is swift but final. The family eats, and birds start to sing again. Jackals, wild dogs wait to spring, and vultures hover in the air waiting for their share in the feast. And the African buffalo, timid but dangerous, look on placidly now that the danger is past. Rhinos, though they are seen in the Kruger National Park, are more common in the Shlalua Reserve in Natal. The white rhino, so called for its allegedly placid temperament, is usually rather shy and hides from danger. The smaller and slightly darker beast, the black rhino, is short-sighted, small-brained, and bad-tempered. He attacks without provocation, often blindly missing his target, and with his scaly armor, he's almost immune to counterattack. The giant of them all, the massive, ponderous elephant. He can rip down trees, crush cars to sheet metal. Fearing nothing, he tramps his way through the thickest brush, the tallest trees, tearing away all obstacles and shaking the earth beneath him. From the smallest to the greatest, they live here as they did in ages past, with no fear of man, in this unforgettable African wilderness. About 1/10 of the population are of the pastoral Watusi race. Long ago, the Watusi people migrated from the north and soon established their domination over the Bantus and Pygmies. The average height of these athletic men is 7 feet, but many are even taller, ideal recruits for an American basketball team. The Watusi excel in dancing and high jumping. Their dancing attire is a ravishing sight for the tourists, a garish mixture of colors and picturesque accessories. There's something of the triumphant warrior in his expressive movements. It's true that up to the beginning of our century, the dynastic history of the Watusi was one of bloody intrigues and fantastic cruelty. But today, the controls imposed by white men have put an end to these barbaric customs. The Watusi and their Bantu subjects are mainly cattle breeders. Since the advent of Western methods, their breeding technique has greatly improved. Their longhorn cattle resemble those seen on ancient Egyptian monuments from Pharaoh's time. The origin of the Watusi, the country from which they migrated, is just one of those many fascinating mysteries that confront students of African lore. Native huts cluster around Lake Kivu, which lies in the Watusi country. Note the guest houses, conveniently and beautifully placed for the comfort of tourists. Well-organized guest homes, clean and comfortable, are an attractive feature of travel in the Congo. The lake is everything to the native. Transportation, for one thing. Dugout canoes haul wood from one village to another. The lake is also drinking fountain, bathtub, and washing machine. Lake Kivu holds an important place in the community. As is true of many African tribes, the women are often the laborers. Here they lug drinking water. Well, that's one way of doing it. And then there's Blue Monday, wash day, when the age-old primitive laundry methods prevail. Though all this grandeur is easily accessible by modern means of transportation, the landscape remains intact, unsullied by the encumbrances of civilization. In this eastern Congo and Rwanda-Urundi region, the Belgian government in 1934 put aside 4 enormous areas of land as national parks, where animal and vegetable life was to be preserved in its pristine glory. The creation of these national parks, due largely to the initiative of the late King Albert, who took the advice of Carl Akeley, the American anthropologist and traveler, occurred just in time to prevent further deforestation and further extinction of several species of wild animals. Tourists can visit the parks only under official guidance and with certain restrictions, but here the animals are entirely free. resuming their life as it was before the coming of white men. Depicted here, Talbot National Park, 3,000 square miles in all, including within its limits a chain of volcanoes, lakes and forests, plains and mountain ranges. Visitors to the parks must always tour in a closed car. They never miss seeing some kind of antelope. There are over 200 species here. There is nothing for the animals to fear from their guardians or from the visitors. Hunting is absolutely forbidden, of course. The only shooting allowed is that with a camera. On the other hand, there's nothing for the tourist to fear either, if he obeys the rules and remains in his automobile. Antelope and African buffalo, baboons and birds, hippos, rhinos and lions, if you keep alert, you'll spy them all and thrill to find them in their chosen environment. There's no comparison here with a trip to the local zoo. Of all the aborigines in the Congo, the Pygmies are of greatest interest to travelers. The purest type of these curious dwarfs is found in the Ituri forest in northeastern Congo. These small men are undoubtedly the oldest inhabitants of Central Africa. From 4 feet 4 to 4 feet 8 in height, the Pygmies usually have a friendly understanding with their bigger neighbors with whom they regularly trade. A nomad hunter, the pygmy is a creature of the forest, his knowledge of its myriad secrets truly astonishing. His only weapons, the tools of his trade, are a small spear and the bow and arrow. You won't find the pygmies settled in villages, for since hunting is their livelihood, they follow the game and live in temporary encampments which they can organize from scratch in just a few hours. Here a group of pygmies constructs a small shelter almost as fast as a Boy Scout can pitch a tent. The large leaves of the nearest tree provide excellent roofing. The pygmy carries very little kitchen equipment with him, but the mortar and pestle are indispensable. With them, he crushes bananas, manioc, and corn. And sometimes, for diversion, he mixes a small batch of facial makeup. The pygmy is happily unaware of fashion. He wears the very minimum and chooses his materials from the familiar forest. He is generally content with a passable loincloth. He beats a piece of bark to separate its fibers and reduce it to a kind of rag. The homemade rag goes on diaper style and is tied with a piece of liana or a ribbon of bark. There's no laundry problem here. It's easy enough to fashion a new outfit when this one has served its purpose. When the spirit moves him to brighten up his wardrobe, the pygmy knows how to mix a beautiful red dye. The pygmy understands not only the forest, but its creatures. Here's a baby okapi, only a few days old. A member of the giraffe family, the okapi is a very rare animal, found only in this small section of the Congo. In the whole world, there are only 2 of them in captivity. And this is the sloth, aptly named for his lazy habits. Wherever the tourist roams here, he soon will come upon a small group of native spectators enjoying an age-old traditional dance. Though the ferocity and belligerence of natives have long since abated, many of the dances are based on a warlike theme. Note the clothing on the female spectators. The closer the natives come to civilization, the more clothing they affect. The women especially take to colorful cottons imported from Europe. These dances are performing right outside one of the many overnight shelters, Putnam's Camp. Tourists have ample opportunity to witness such colorful native spectacles. Another exciting and picturesque native dance. This one impersonates the lowly rooster. Among giants and dwarfs in the enchanted land of the Belgian Congo, the rhythm of jungle music reverberates through the forest, echoing back into the centuries before the coming of the white man.